Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 217. Of course, I'm John Davis. Around our table in MotorWeek headquarters, Studio C, we are honored to have executive producer and head writer Dave Scrivener with us today.
Honored to be here.
And we're always honored to have, the guy that knows more about cars on this show than anybody else, writer Brian Robinson.
No, it's definitely not me. But
oh, yes, it is. And at the phone, I should say over the phone, who is at the 2019 LA Auto Show, which is going, the press days are right now. We're recording this on Thursday, November 21st, and it's around 1 p.m. Eastern. Greg Carlos. Greg, how's the weather out there?
You know, they say it's always sunny in L.A., but that wasn't my experience yesterday. But today it's actually pretty good. So.
That's good. Well, we're going to spend most of the show talking about what's new at the L.A. Auto Show, or the Auto Mobility LA 2019, as they now call it. So, Greg, we'll start. Now, a couple days before the show, Ford unveiled its long-rumored EV, the Ford Mustang Mach-e, their first purpose-built EV. We'll get back to that in just a few minutes down the line in the lightning round, because that really was kind of like the elephant in the room for the whole show. But let's start with something a little closer to the market, Toyota RAV4 Prime. Tell us about the new PHEV.
Yeah, so coming off success of the RAV4 hybrid, which we actually have as a long-term, they're now going to offer a PHEV, which is how it gets that Prime designation, like the Prius Prime. But it's interesting that they're kind of billing this as the more sporty RAV4, and it's actually 305 horsepower, I believe, and 0 to 60 at 5.8 seconds. And as I understand, that's actually the second quickest in the lineup to 60, next to the Supra.
Yeah, it looks like it is. But the mileage, what's the actual amount of EV-only miles?
39.
They reported 39.
39. So that's pretty high. I mean, these days, isn't it?
Yeah, 14 to 18 is pretty standard.
Yeah. We're seeing so many of the European vehicles still coming in with, 22, 24. What was the feeling overall at the show as far as the new intros, and what was the vibe from the show? I mean, we hear so much about auto shows sort of dying. Is the LA show still alive and kicking, or what?
You know, this one seems like there's a little bit more excitement than last year. But as far as the feel and the whole vibe, we just started with it, electrification. It's still at the forefront of just about every automaker's press conference. Something's electrified, be it a PHEV or full battery electric, fuel cell. Hydrogen fuel cells are starting to, make a comeback, or at least try to get back into the game. But also performance, not just internal combustion engines, as we've seen. We'll probably talk about Mercedes and Audi. But automakers are really pushing the performance aspects of their electrified vehicles.
I guess one of the few vehicles there that wasn't necessarily electric, at least not in the iteration they've shown, is the production version of the Lexus LC convertible. They had already shown a prototype. Any clue on what this 5-liter V8, and there aren't that many of those left coming out, what this thing's going to sell for and how many they're going to make?
I don't believe they came out with pricing quite yet. And actually, they're going to do a one-off version for Barrett-Jackson that's going to go off, which will probably bring in quite a bit of money.
Oh, sure.
But they're saying it's going to be $400 to $600 maybe a year of LC convertibles.
So low volume, but that, considering they only sell, I guess we were just looking up the sales figures. It looks like this year they're only going to sell about 1,200 of the coupes or so. So that's still that's pretty significant.
I just found my notes. So at the event, they said they're expecting the convertible to be 30 to 40% of total LC sales.
Right.
But between 400 and 600 a year.
I imagine pricing would be like 15, 20 grand above the coupe, probably. Something around that range.
Which is about $97,000.
Yeah. So it's certainly a 6-digit car. Speaking beautiful. Of six-digit cars, Aston Martin DBX. What'd you think?
Yeah, that's I thought it was a great looking car, or I should say SUV. But people like to kind of slam things when they're new. A lot of people were calling it a new Ford Escape, which I think people kind of forget that Ford initially took that grille design with the Fusion from Aston Martin.
Exactly.
Maybe didn't take it, but really nice looking car, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun to drive.
I mean, that's just the latest, super premium brand to enter the SUV market, and it certainly seems like the smart thing to do. Let's see what's next on the list. The Land Rover Defender, of course, has been seen before, but they did set the price. I believe it starts at, 51 grand, which, I don't know, it seems like a pretty reasonable price to me.
Yeah, of course, it starts there, but if you can get it around that 50 grand range, yeah, exactly. And they're going to be, you still have the Defender 90 and the 110. The 90 will be here before the 110, separated by a season, so fall of 2020 for the 110 and spring of 2020 for the 90. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. They are going to keep that center front seat for 3 across the front, which will be pretty cool. A couple of engine choices, turbo i4 or a turbo and supercharged i6. Both will have an 8-speed auto, so you won't have any manual transmissions to have fun off-road with.
I did notice that you've done a superb job of basically making sure we had good social media coverage of the show. So if anyone hasn't caught it, be sure to do so. But also, if you go to our website under This Just In, you'll see a full rundown of everything that was at the show, even if you're a couple of days after this recording actually seeing it. Did you find out there that the automakers were gearing things more towards social media than ever before, or what's the focus on, how they're launching these vehicles now?
Yeah, they're still doing that thing where a night and sometimes even 2 nights before the show, they'll have an off-site event for the real big reveal. But they absolutely are, because a lot of the people you see there, these events are huge in L.A., and there's so many people, and they're not just journalists. I mean, there's the journalists that we see all the time in these events, but there's also just hundreds of other people that I've never seen before, and they all look very trendy and much cooler than me. So I have to imagine they're social media influencers.
I can't even believe that's possible.
Oh.
Let's come back down to earth with the 2020 Nissan Sentra.
Yeah,
looks better.
We talked about this before. How I guess the Sentra is technically a compact still, or has that moved up into a midsize?
I think it's still considered a compact by them, but I think the interior room has got to be pretty close to.
It's got to be midsize. If it's not, inside space anyway.
It certainly does not look like a compact sedan anymore, but really, it does look really nice. It takes some of the Maxima styling. Just a really nice looking exterior package.
I've looked at the pictures of it, of course, and they borrowed a lot of Altima and Maxima for the front end. But when you get entry level cars with things like LED headlights and all the safety features, it's like, especially if you're still calling it a compact, it sort of shows why the midsize ranks have been dwindling so much. Let's see. Switching gears completely, Audi showed a new all-electric e-tron Sportback.
It's a lot better looking than the current e-tron.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. The Sportback does wonders for the style. I mean, the e-tron wasn't a bad-looking car to begin with, but it now that you see a Sportback version, you're like, why wasn't this always the way it looked?
And I often find the opposite to be true. I don't like the Sportback styling in a lot of the cars.
This one
I do.
Any other details about it?
270 miles of range based on the European cycle, which, we just had that e-tron in, and it was only like 220 maybe?
It wasn't even that much.
204.
204 rated, as Brian says.
But, our numbers are usually lower than their numbers.
And I got I drove it almost till it was dry, and I got about 210. Let's see.
Lexus.
Did that. Lexus LF30 concept. Back to Lexus.
Yeah, another pretty wild-looking one.
They have the
again,
gull
whole
wing
idea
doors.
Yeah, very cool gull-wing doors, electric motors inside of each wheel. So more control of where the torque goes. That can go to any individual wheel.
Probably better packaging too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, really, really cool looking. Just, somebody had tweeted back at us and wondering why they can't make something like that. And I mean, it would just cost a fortune, and it would probably be very uncomfortable looking at those seats.
BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe.
Yeah,
this was a world premiere, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be an auto show without a European manufacturer putting 2 more doors on a coupe. So we have the Grand Coupe version of the 2 Series and the M8 Grand Coupe, which also sported a really nice green paint job. And back to an actual coupe, they had the M2 CS, which should be pretty bonkers.
That should be pretty hairy. Yeah.
I keep wondering how thinly these German manufacturers can slice up particular segments of the market, but they always surprise me.
BMW is the master of it.
They are indeed. Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, kind of shoehorning the Chevy Trailblazer. They're kind of putting it in a weird position in between the Trax and the Equinox. Just a very odd placing of the car, and they're bringing back the Trailblazer name, obviously, but they claim it's going to be priced under $20,000 to begin with.
Well, it was designed, if I recall, primarily for the Far East market, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it has been in other markets. Yeah, exactly. But we'll be getting it here, and it'll be much different than the Trailblazer we remember.
Well, like they've done with so many other things, but it stayed with that sporty front end that they've been involved with in the last couple of launches. Is this going to be an imported vehicle, as far as you know, or do you know?
As far as I can't say for sure, but I would imagine so.
What's the other one?
Blazer?
Oh, Blazer. So it looks a lot like the Blazer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a mini Blazer.
A mini Blazer, yeah. Thank you, Brian.
Or a Trailblazer.
All right. This one is catching everyone's eye because I guess because it's just another vision of where electric cars are going. The Volkswagen ID Space Vision concept.
Yeah.
It's a wagon looking.
Yeah, it had what caught my eye was the rack for a skateboard in the back, which hit right in my 90s child nostalgia. But rear-mounted 275 horsepower motor. It can take a motor up front, apparently, so for all-wheel drive. But yeah, just the latest Volkswagen ID model.
They made a lot of fuss about how the proportions have been shaped differently because they don't have to make space for a gas engine up front anymore. It still has a fairly long hood, but pictures are deceiving. When you see it in person, does it look that much different, or does it just look like a stylish wagon? Because that's what the pictures look like.
No, it basically does just look like a stylish wagon. I mean, maybe if you really sat there and looked at it, you would say, I guess there's not as much front overhang, there's not as much room in the front that you would normally see, but it still looks very good.
A Mercedes AMG GLS 63, another high-performance version from those folks.
Yeah, they're throwing that 4-liter V8 into some more cars, 603 horsepower, both in that and the GLE 63, which is also here. And I'm not sure, maybe somebody else can correct me, but is the GLE the one that'll get the EQ boost, or do they both get EQ boost in it? Because I think it's the first time they would use it.
don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the AMG models. I know the regular
ones do.
all of them pretty much Mercedes do now at this point.
But I think the big deal is that it's the first time it's used on this engine.
On this engine, okay. Speaking of EV boost, Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring, their first all-wheel drive with rear electric drive PHEV.
Yeah, and we just talked about it with the RAV4 with the all-EV mileage. This one is about 25 miles.
Yeah.
So, not a ton, but I guess every little bit counts, as we've seen with our Mitsubishi PHEV long term.
This is.
Yeah, I didn't.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I was just going to probably.
This has been a long time coming. I mean, about 5 years ago, I went out on a limb and I said I really thought that we'd see electric motors being used for rear, for all-wheel drive at the rear axle with a lot of these car-based SUVs, and it hasn't happened. And I mean, Toyota kicked it off with the Highlander a long time ago, but now it's finally starting to come down. And I guess they're doing it because they had to wait till they changed the architecture enough to fit in at least some form of a battery. I don't know. I wonder in this market what the take's going to be on it with only 25 miles.
Oh, imagine if it's like the Aviator, or is it the Aviator that has
the Aviator has it, but the Aviator doesn't have the electric all-wheel drive.
Correct, but it's like way faster than the other one. So
it's
if this one is as
500
well,
horsepower hybrid.
Yeah, it's like the high performance version. So they're going to sell a lot just based on that fact.
Let's see. It says combined with the 2.5 liter i4, total output's 266. So it's not in the Aviator's class, but still it's quicker.
It's a lot smaller too, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a really neat little vehicle. I probably they'll do a little bit better than they think they are. Hyundai had a lot at this show. Let's start with the Vision T concept PHEV, their wildest one.
Yeah, again, kind of one of those things where they're previewing the future of where they see their brand going. Again, another nice looking vehicle, PHEV. Again, the electrification.
It's an SUV, right?
I believe.
Yeah.
I'm looking back through my notes here.
Yeah, it's considered. It's a car-based looking crossover, but these days, everybody calls everything SUVs. So.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I was looking in the other direction at the mid-engined RM19.
I wonder why. Now, that's the latest version of their N-based prototype race car?
Yeah, basically, it is a prototype, and it is mid-engined. They claim that it's going to production. Now, this one we saw came out with all the race car aero. I mean, massive rear diffuser, front splitter, huge wing on the back. That obviously would not make it to production, but they're claiming that a mid-engine, or we're understanding that perhaps a mid-engined Veloster will make it.
Well, that would be quite a change for what's been a high-value sporty car for now. That won't be nearly as inexpensive. Speaking of high-value sporty little cars, Mini Cooper had basically a race car there with the John Cooper Works GP. This is the most powerful, I guess, three-door Mini they've ever marketed.
Yeah, that thing just looks like a ton of fun. I mean, you can kind of. Minis are kind of polarizing. You either love them or you hate them. But I don't think anybody will tell you that they aren't fun to drive. And this one looks pretty awesome. A lot of wild-looking aero treatment on the outside of the car, which may or may not be the greatest-looking thing. But it certainly looks like it's fun to drive.
What was the public acceptance of the Porsche Taycan?
What do you mean by that? I mean, is it?
Did people like what they saw? They showed the 4S there.
Yeah, the 4S. So that'll be in below the Turbo and Turbo S models, even though none of them actually use turbos because it's an all-electric vehicle.
Right.
But no, a lot of people were bringing up the word Tesla in the Porsche booth here because they're kind of separated from all the other manufacturers. Porsche doesn't like to mention Tesla much because they don't want to say that they're benchmarking them, but they obviously want to take some buyers away from Tesla. And at least from what I'm hearing, a lot of people are really receptive to the looks of the Taycan and the performance. Pricing is a little over the top, but again, I think you will get exactly what you pay for with the Taycan.
Yeah, the build quality is certainly there.
Well, when you look at the Taycan and you look at the overall silhouette, you can't help but just think of the Tesla Model S. You just can't.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Next on your list, the new small SUV from Kia.
Yeah, the
Seltos.
Yeah. Fun little, looks like they're kind of going for the urban, weekday, urban, weekend, like off-road camping type deal, where it's not necessarily an off-road vehicle, but something you can take on a dirt road to go camping.
Is that their version of the Kona, the Hyundai Kona? Or is it smaller than that?
It's smaller than the Kona, isn't it?
Really?
It's supposed to slip in the market between the Soul and the Sportage. So it's bigger than the Soul.
Yeah, I mean, it has different proportions. It's more of like an SUV, and like you see it, and you see an SUV over a Kona.
I would rather see all-wheel drive put in the Niro. I like the Niro a lot.
Me too.
Yep.
I agree with that. Which brings up another small SUV, the Mazda CX-30, which a lot of people have been saying, why do they need this little vehicle slotted between the CX-3 and the CX-5? It does seem to be like it's getting very crowded in their lineup. But any impression of it?
I didn't spend a lot of time looking at that one, but what I'm looking at online right now, I mean, it's very Mazda, and we all like the styling of Mazdas. But again, yeah, it's hard to get over that they're just trying to shoehorn all of these models in any little space they can find. But I'm sure it'll be
There's a
fine.
butt for every seat. So,
Two new. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah. Two new models, or I should say, revamps from Alfa, the Giulia and the Stelvio.
Yeah, there's again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time with those. I think those were just updates.
Yeah, they are.
both still attractive.
I think they basically tweaked the exterior quite a bit, and they're beautiful cars. It's interesting, the two pictures that we have posted on our website, it's exactly the same angle and elevation of the camera for both. And when I first saw them, I thought, why do we have two pictures of the same car up on the website? Great looking cars. I kind of wish more people were interested in them. And Acura showed the production version of the PMC edition of the MDX.
Yep. They also have the Type S here, which I hadn't seen before, so that was nice to see. But I think looking at this list that I've written out, we have a couple more that I just want to mention real quick.
Sure.
So Camry and Avalon all-wheel drive were here. Camry is the first all-wheel drive version since '91, and the first ever Avalon all-wheel drive.
The Camry all-track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll make some people happy. And there was a concept from Karma, the SC2, which they claim has 1,100 horsepower and is 0 to 60 of 1.9 seconds, according to them. And
That's faster than most performance motorcycles, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, if you don't have to build it, you can say it gets to 60 and whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. And then one final one was the last reveal from yesterday. It was like basically everybody was walking out the door. Was the Genesis G90 update with a huge grille, and which makes sense for that class of vehicle of luxury. People like big grills. Kind of reminds me of an oversized Acura grill, but I don't think it's very bad looking at all.
This morning, however, you also were there when they unveiled the Green Car winners for the year. You want to give us the rundown?
Yeah, so the Green Car of the Year, which was, I guess, the original award, went to the whole Corolla lineup. So we're talking sedan, hatchback, and hybrid. And then over on the SUV side, it went to the Honda CR-V hybrid, which none of us have actually even driven. And it's actually on display here. It's not on sale yet.
Yeah, it's been out in Europe and Asia, but it hasn't been here, and they didn't really even announce it till a couple of months ago. That's unusual. And the Corolla I find interesting. I would understand if they gave it to the Corolla hybrid, but I wonder what the rationale is for giving it to the whole Corolla family. Just that it's a lot of efficient car for the money, or?
Yeah, it's. I would have to imagine so. I mean, I know we drove the hybrid and I guess the sedan, but I just remember how effortless it was to get into the 50 mpg range on that hybrid.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Well, we'll come back. Like I said, when we get to the lightning round, we're going to talk at length about the Ford Mustang Mach-E. But how about you standing by, and maybe you've got something to contribute to the other vehicle that we wanted to cover on this particular podcast. Thanks very much, by the way, for all of your reporting from the LA Auto Show. Dave Scrivener, you are one of the few people that has driven the 2021 Polestar 1 from Volvo. Tell us what it is and tell us what you think about it.
Well, Polestar is the performance electrified sub-brand of Volvo, half owned by Geely, Volvo's parent, and Volvo. Polestar comes from the name of their racing team from Europe.
On their performance models for years.
Right, and they made that the brand name for Polestar. The Polestar 1 is a plug-in hybrid. Future cars will be electric only, I believe. 70 miles of EV range is really the calling card for this. Most of your plug-in hybrids are in the 10, 20, 30 range.
40. This
really is a difference maker.
Higher than any other PHEV, I think.
I believe you're right. The downside to that is it's $155,000. They're only going to make so many of them. They will sell them out because they're exclusive. It's made of carbon fiber, which gives you much more crispy body lines than you can do with steel. So the exclusivity and the materials make it, I guess, worth the money. But driving it feels like a really, really nice Volvo S90 hybrid.
Is it based on the same chassis?
It uses the same floor pan as the other basic chassis, but they graft on a carbon fiber chassis and body on top of that. And 2 electric motors in the back, the supercharged, turbocharged i4 up front gives it a combined 619 horsepower. It doesn't feel that fast off the line. I don't think the motors kick in so quickly, up to above 30 or so. But handling is really crisp. It uses Olin's adjustable shock absorbers. It has Akebono brakes. So the hardware is there for handling. It's really, really comfortable, soaks up the bumps pretty well. I find the steering's a bit disjointed from the road. Not a whole lot of feel to it, but it goes where you point it. You got to push it pretty hard to get it to protest and squeal the tires a little bit. But it's very comfortable, very competent. I just don't see the price personally.
I was going to say that's. What is that? Probably $50,000 more than any Volvo that's ever sold before.
And the thing is, it weighs as much as an XC90. It's over 5,000 pounds.
Wow. Yeah, people forget all these electric cars. The batteries are heavy.
The trunk's the size of a Miata's trunk.
Yeah. So obviously they're using it as a prestige car.
It's the halo for the brand.
Right. And they promised both EVs and I think some more reasonable plug-ins.
Yeah, we saw the Polestar 2 on display when I drove this one. It's a S60 sized sedan. It'll be an electric car.
Yeah, I just found it odd that their all-electric brand they would launch with a plug-in hybrid,
right?
Not an all-electric car.
I think they're electric performance brand, what they're calling it.
Modified when we first started hearing about it, that was their all-electric brand. So I find that a little weird, but 70 miles, if that's indeed.
It's based on their Volvo Coupe concept from 2013, which is coincidentally designed by the current CEO of Polestar.
And it looks just like it.
It looks exactly like it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to make this car and make it our first car.
We were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Automotive News ran this long list of like 100 new quote-unquote electric cars coming out in the next 5 years, and like 70 or 80% of them were PHEVs, were plug-in hybrids.
I think it's a great balance.
Yeah.
You get, you can plug it in, extend your EV range.
So people plug their diesel trucks in at night to keep,
That's right.
Is that technically a plug-in? Yeah.
The original plug-in.
Eliminates range anxiety, having a little bit of a gas motor there to get you home if you have to.
What'd you say, Greg?
It was stupid. Don't even bother.
No, that's what the podcasts are for.
Might as well throw it away.
All right. Okay, let's go on to the lightning round, and let's get back basically to the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Very simply, this is the long-awaited first purpose-built electric vehicle from Ford. They've used Mustang styling cues, front and rear, particularly in the grille and the taillights and the sides, the pressings for the side panels. 300 range maximum with a two-wheel drive model that won't be out for a while. The first model out, I believe, is going to be, I want to say 270, but is that coming later? I know you've got a chance to see it in person, Greg. Give us your impressions on, were you wowed or underwhelmed, or what did you think?
Yeah, I definitely was not wowed. That doesn't mean it's not a good-looking car.
Looks like a five-door hatchback.
Yeah, and it looks a lot like a Jaguar E-Pace, F-Pace, that whole thing. But that aside, it is a pretty good-looking vehicle. It's not. I guess it's not as extreme of styling as some people may have wanted. I mean, the GT is obviously going to have some, flared fenders and some other pieces that make it look a little bit better than a base version.
And a grill look to the front instead of just the kind of cutout outline.
Right. Yeah, the interior is okay. It's very Ford. They definitely went right after Tesla with that big screen. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the interior.
It's very plain looking, I thought, in the pictures, with the big tablet and then a small tablet in front of the driver.
Yeah, and I don't think they were going for plain. They were probably going for like minimalist, but
tech,
like you said, it comes off that way. It comes off as plain.
3.5 seconds 0 to 60 for the GT version, which will be right up there with the folks at Tesla. I mean, basically, they're aiming this at the Tesla Model Y. Even pricing is pretty similar, at least for initial models. So when you saw it, and, did you say, wow, I would rather have that than the Tesla? Or do you think, if you read all of the online comments and social media, they're extremely mixed?
No, I don't. Myself, I definitely don't see that and say I need that over a Tesla or even any other all-electric SUV. It's going to come down to how it drives. And I was having a discussion with other journalists about how a lot of the electric SUVs that we drive kind of drive similar because they all have a battery below the floor, there's a low center of gravity. They're all just have like a really similar feel. So I'm curious to see if they can separate themselves or if it's just a lot more of the same.
It is a watershed vehicle for a domestic manufacturer. I think that's pretty clear. And the folks at GM and Chrysler have to be scratching their heads just a little bit at FCA as to what's happened here. But so certainly was the car that sort of took the air out of the room even before LA opened.
But the name?
Yeah, how about the name? Dave, go ahead, comment.
I think I like to say they've ruined the Mustang name, but they survived the Mustang 2 in the 70s and 80s, so they can bounce back from this, I think.
Yeah, performance cars, as we know them 50 years from now, are going to be a lot more like this than they are than what they are now. So I think it sets them up to keep that Mustang name going strong for years to come.
And that's actually what one of the main editorials out there said about it, that they've ensured the Mustang name will have a big future. Yeah. Did you write that?
Nah.
All right.
I wrote the minor editorial, not the main one.
Let's see. The least expensive model, when it comes out, which will be sometime in 2021, they say it's going to be about $44,000. The one that comes out about a year from now will be roughly around $60,000, and that's the so-called first edition. Sales were opened on Sunday when they unveiled the car. I wonder if it's sold out already. So interesting, and we're all looking forward for a chance to drive it probably next summer. I'm going to move on to our viewer question from Darren, and it also is electrified vehicle base. He said he was watching our long-term updates on the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, which we currently have in. He took note of our running fuel economy. He was curious to know how we were getting that mileage. Were we charging it a lot, or was it spending a lot of time on the road after the battery runs out? And the answer is both.
Yeah, I'm curious. Does he think our number's high, or does it?
It didn't really say.
Yeah.
It is high versus the normal vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, it's plugged in a lot at the office. I see.
Yeah, every day of the week.
Plugged into the
Yeah,
wall.
it's mixed results. Some staffers plug it in regularly, others don't. So there's some fluctuation there.
The other thing is whether or not when you get in it, whether you push the battery saver or just let it draw down the power right away.
Right.
And that makes a big difference.
And that's just driver preference. We don't have a standardized, you must do it this way. So.
Right.
The last time we did a check, we noticed a significant bump up in the mileage, Darren, and we figure that's because more people were actually charging it up. So the answer is we're probably using it the way a lot of people will use it, which is if they can plug in at work, they do plug in at work, but once it's depleted, it may be inconvenient, or maybe they live in an apartment and they don't plug it in overnight. So I will tell you that overall, we're a lot more impressed with the vehicle than we thought we were going to be. And I think it's a good effort.
Agreed.
Hope that answers your question. Say, has anybody got a rant and rave? How about you, Greg? Anything out there that you didn't like really a whole lot, or that just overcame you with joy, or anything?
Not as far as automotive. I can't say that I'm particularly missed or can rave about anything. But what I will say is that the streets of L.A., and I'm talking quite literally the streets and sidewalks, have really put a damper on my time out here. So when it rains here, they're so slick, I guess because of, months without rain, and they're just generally slick surfaces. And I can barely walk.
Really?
Without falling down. Yeah, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I have to watch every step I take. And then this morning, as in my hurry to get over here for Green Car, I must not have secured my book bag well, and my laptop took a tumble onto the ground. It still works, but there's a nice little dent on the corner. So,
But the question is, does it work?
It works. I'll be sending you guys
time mix.
probably right when I hang up.
Okay. Anybody else around the table?
I've got a rant.
Dave's got a rant.
Partly due to the fact that we drive so many cars and don't get used to them. I was driving the heavy-duty Silverado last week or so, and I cannot stand the auto high beams.
Oh, I agree with that.
I had to stop and Google how to turn the darn thing off.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I wanted to control what light I use, and it's constantly flicking them on and off to me. It's like, stop doing that.
Yeah, and I hate that a lot of times when you have the low beams on, then you turn the high beams on.
Oh, yeah.
It goes into and
you
it doesn't
that?
turn them
Good.
on.
Yeah, that's
it doesn't
right.
turn them on. And it waits and thinks about, okay, I guess it's okay to turn them on now, and then it turns them on. By then, the deer's already that I'm trying
In
to
your
see.
grill.
Yeah.
in your grill or your window. Not
they are
to laugh
frustrating.
about that.
Some are better than others,
Agreed.
but they are all frustrating.
I was driving the Volvo home the other night. We have a Volvo V60 cross-country wagon in, and it's got the auto headlights. And what got me is when they worked fine, but if you but then they wouldn't come on. So then you flick the stalk to bring them on, and then, of course, you've killed the automatic function. And how do you get back to the automatic function? It seems like they either ought to be on or be off. But that's a good one, Dave. That's a good rant.
Well,
There you go.
I'd like to chime in. I know we're going past our time here.
That's
but
all
it's a
right.
podcast. We can do whatever we want. But the Ford Escape Hybrid I drove like a weekend or two ago.
Yep.
Its auto high beams are some of the most pleasantly activating and deactivating I've ever seen.
Well.
Instead of just like going straight to high beam and straight off, there's actually like a fade up and a fade
Yeah, I
down
noticed that as
which is
well.
Really, really nice.
It was a fade up and fade down. You're right. And as a matter of fact, the Corsair, the Lincoln Corsair has that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's just another technology that's still evolving. It's interesting, people that aren't as old as I am don't remember that, we had automatic high beams back in the late 40s and early 50s. You saw all those Cadillacs going down the road with those big things that looked like a little nozzle off an airplane sitting up on the fenders. Greg, thanks very much for all your reporting from L.A.
Mm-hmm.
See you back here in the office.
See you soon.
Hey, be safe out there. Watch where you're walking.
I'll try.
Indeed. Thanks to our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, our podcast producer, who is Greg, and our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. And thanks to all of you that watch MotorWeek on public television stations all around the country every week, and also on our cable channel, which is Motor Trend. And let's see what else. And listen to our podcast. Go to our website. Check out everything there at motorweek.org. And just are a part of our MotorWeek family. And thank you very much for all of that. And I hope you'll join us for another MotorWeek podcast very soon.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.